Welcome, everybody. I'm Jen Romano, UXPA 2025 Conference Co-Chair, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Sarah Mastro, Conference Co-Chair and UXPA President, and Anne Yosenverta, who is the UXPA 2025 Course Chair. And we're delighted to be joined today by Luke Hay, who is joining us at UXPA, teaching a course that we are excited to share with you all. Thank you, Luke, for joining us today.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, hello everyone.
We'd love to hear a bit about your career path. You're a seasoned expert. You've been around. You've been doing this for a long time. Take us back. How did it get started, and how did you get to where you are today?
Ooh, there's a good question. I don't know if we've got time for the full length version, but I started
Uh-huh.
out actually just about in the last century. So from 1998, when the web was a relatively new thing still. Just leaving college, I happened to come into a web design agency really without knowing anything about it at all, and it kind of went from there. So I think I started off by um, looking at mainly sort of around analytics of websites and that kind of thing, sort of hits as they were back then. Before then, I suppose after a few years learning more and more about UX as it was a bit of an emerging field back then, and really I've been in roles relating to UX for probably about sort of 20 or so years, which is staggering looking back. But yeah, a wide range of different types of research, always really on the research side rather than the design side. And yeah, I am currently the senior user researcher at an agency in the UK called ClearLeft.
Awesome. And what are you up to at ClearLeft? What are you up to these days?
Yes, so I'm the senior user researcher there, so I'm sort of in charge of all the research that we do, and we work with a very wide range of clients. At the moment, we're working with a few universities here in the UK. Quite a lot of different projects, finding out how prospective students choose which university to go to, for
Mhm.
example. There's a report on our website about that as well, and also other sort of elements of what universities do, so how they work with current students, with businesses, that kind of thing. So there's the sort of university and education side, but we also work with a wide range of different clients, from sort of e-commerce to um, yeah, charity to really anything you can think of. We will tend to work with, and each project is different every time. Particularly from the research side of things, because of course you've got quite different audiences. We recently did some ethnographic research with one of the train providers here in the UK. So I was actually on getting on trains and sort of observing staff on the trains and how they deal with people there. So it's a real mix of the kind of more, I suppose, bread and butter sort of usability testing, user interviews, as well
Mhm.
as some of those different research methods too. So we're always working on something interesting at ClearLeft.
Yeah, it sounds
Interesting.
it.
Tell me about, like, you have been over a quarter of the century. If you started
Mm.
with in last uh, millennium, how does, like, in method wise user research, how does it changed?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess it hasn't, in some ways, hasn't changed that much, because it's the same principles. You're trying to
Mm,
find out from people, sort of get a deeper understanding of their behavior and their needs and motivations, and
mm,
that stayed consistent. I mean, essentially, it's that same thing of kind of asking people questions and keep asking those questions until the answers make sense. It's that idea
mm,
of, yeah, that sort of deeper understanding of
mm,
people. So that hasn't necessarily changed. I think what's
mhm,
probably changed more is obviously the way people interact with digital products.
mm,
But the majority of our research is around that still, rather than necessarily real world physical objects.
mm,
So I think the advent of smartphones going
mm,
back over time, but how that's sort of just completely changed how everyone lives their day-to-day
mm,
lives. And then from the sort of running the research side of things, of course, tools have developed over time to make
mm,
things so much more easier possible in some
mm,
cases. The simple explanation. We're using
mm,
Zoom here, and that's very sort of every day for most people
mm,
now. But even a few years ago, that was less of a thing. So doing those sort of remote moderated usability tests, for example, has become a lot
mm,
easier. And then, of course, like, we've got AI to consider as well as being the main disruptor that we're all very aware of.
Yeah. Have you, what do you think about AI? And is that something that you've incorporated in your work, or is it something you're exploring?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you can't ignore. I think that was the sort of knee-jerk reaction away from a lot of people, probably myself included, to begin with, to be honest, about this looks like more of a threat than an assistance, but it's not going away. There are various downsides to it from ethical and environmental viewpoints as much as anything else. But I think as long as you're using it in ways that work with you, then it can be valuable. So I was talking to someone who runs a AI tool for research, and they were sort of describing it as possibly being a bit like a junior researcher, which in some ways is a good way to look at it. That it's not going to do everything that I can do, but will sort of help me with various bits of it. The flip side of that, of course, is then that means what happens to the junior researchers. But I think there's always going to be room for human intervention. I think there's only so much that the AI tools can do, and I think a lot of my job and a lot of our job as researchers is explaining that and getting that across to stakeholders, to clients, to other people that actually, yes, you can use these tools that will do large bits of the job, in some cases, possibly even all of the job. But actually, can you trust the results that are coming back? And I think the
Plus,
answer
yeah,
to that
the subject matter expert is always the subject matter expert. You're still the subject matter expert. So, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it is that idea. There is, there is a feel that you get for a lot of things as well. When you're doing usability tests or user interviews, you get a sort of innately human feel to what people are saying and why they're saying it, that I think AI will never really fully replicate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. How about advice for people who are exploring UX career options? We talked a little bit about the junior researcher. How can they stay relevant? What can people do to be better prepared? People who are on the job market now or who are exploring UX career options. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's really tough out there at the moment. So when I started off, it was a long time ago, and there wasn't really many people doing what we're all doing now. So it was a very different environment to get into. I mean, I would say the key thing is really getting experience as much as you can, and that in itself is very hard to do. But if you can get some real life experience of forms of research or design on that side of things, but whether that's working with sort of more formal internships or just doing some work on your own, in terms of, have you got a friend who's got a website that you can do some work on, whether that's the design side or the research side, but something to actually do things firsthand and get beyond the sort of theoretical side of things, which obviously is still important, but getting the hands-on practice is good. I think it's being aware of the situation and what's out there at the moment. So again, with AI, it's about what can you provide that AI can't, which I think is still quite a lot, but it's knowing where that is and then using AI potentially where it can do things. I'd say personally, I don't use it a lot, but it can be good for doing a first pass of various different aspects of research. You can ask it for ideas, you can ask it for some first level analysis of things like survey results or something like that. And then obviously it does require that checking too. But I think, yeah, that would be my take on it, of try to find what you can provide and also what you as an individual have. What's your specialism, what's your niche, what's your unique selling point, really. And think about it that way, because there is a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of people doing what you do. A lot of people have been on, the sort of various courses that people go on, where you're producing a portfolio that looks very similar to the next person's portfolio. What can you add that makes you unique and adds your own and flavor to your work, really?
Yeah, I love that because you're absolutely right. Everybody has something unique that they're bringing to the table. And if your resume looks just like everybody else's, there's nothing that is going to help make you stand out. I love that. One recommendation I have to people is to get feedback, because oftentimes we're not the best mirror. So you may not even know what it is about you that is phenomenal, right? What is the thing that stands out? But if you have
Absolutely.
colleagues and people you've worked with that you can pick their brain and say, you've worked with me, what do you see in me? Why do you like working with me? Then that can help too, to hone in on the thing that sets you apart.
Oh, definitely. I mean, mentoring is very good as well for that potentially. It's good to talk to colleagues if you have colleagues or friends, but then they're likely to be biased with it. But if you can find some sort of mentor, either through a formal program or even just getting in touch with people who, maybe in your local area, if you're lucky enough to live with somewhere with a lot of UXs around, find people who might be willing to spare a bit of time, even if it's an hour a month or so, to meet up and give their advice firsthand. And then also, as you say, that all important side of things about telling people what they've got to offer, because it can be really hard to see that in yourself. You can be looking out there and seeing all these other people doing all these things that sort of look amazing, whereas actually you've got something to offer as well. And yeah, it's finding what that is and how that's going to apply to the job market, really.
Yeah.
In US, I've noticed that there have been recently more and more people who are switching career from academia, from different other fields to UX, especially UX research. Have you noticed a similar kind of phenomenon in UK and in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been going on for a little while now. And I mean, that's a really good point, that there are those transferable skills that people have. And it's about, again, keeping the sort of most useful parts of those and shaping the rest of it to sort of fit in with that UX environment. I mean, say an academic background, obviously they're amazing researchers in terms of rigor and depth. It's just how much of that can actually be translated into UX, where we might not have the sort of timelines that perhaps you would have on the academic side. So I think as long as people can adapt and change with those environments, then yeah, that gives them a really strong background. But yeah, it's all sorts of different backgrounds. People sort of come in from the marketing side of things as well, and looking at it from that more commercial level. And I think, as long as you've got sort of isolating those skills and what they mean and how they can translate into the UX environment, then that, yeah, can be really strong too.
Yeah. It is interesting because then there's I don't want to say just as many, but there's a cohort of people who also, because the job market is so difficult, they're asking the question, should I leave UX? And I reply like, no, this field is still in its infancy. When you think about how many companies, how many people still don't even know what it is, they still don't know what we do, right? There's still many companies who do not have UX in-house or are not hiring external people.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, that flux, the people who've been in, who feel the shakiness and are questioning whether or not to leave, the people who are still very excited about it and are coming in from other fields.
And I think that does come back to the point I was making around part of our job, and not necessarily us as individuals, but certainly us as a community, is to sell that value of UX, because we've all used and use apps and websites on a daily basis where the UX can be improved. It's not like UX is done and everything's perfect. It's
Right.
far from
Yeah.
it. It's more just people finding finding the need and explaining to people that yes, actually, you do need to have a good user experience, because that will give you that competitive edge if it is if it's a commercial venture. And I think it's that we need to be perhaps being more evangelical about. So I think in the past, UX, we've maybe suffered a bit from just being like, yeah, we're great, we're for the user, aren't we, superheroes, and make everything better for everyone. Whereas actually, there's an element of, okay, but how do we sell this into the people holding the budgets, really? And I think that's something that is a useful skill to have at the moment.
Agree. Yeah. All right, let's talk about UXPA. So the User
Mm.
Experience Professionals Association, our annual conference is June 16 to 19 in Amsterdam. And you are joining us again, teaching a course on June 16th called Bridging the Gap Between Research and Design. Love this topic. Tell us a bit about it. How'd you come up with this idea, and what is this course about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's a course that I've run before, but I'm completely redeveloping this year. So I suppose the start at the beginning. It came about because it's been a always, I think, a source of slight frustration for researchers of
Mm,
all kinds that
mm,
we put a lot of effort in finding out about users and their needs, and then
mhm,
how much that rich insight that we get
mm,
during our research studies
mhm,
actually makes out into the final product.
yeah,
And, hopefully a reasonable
mm,
amount, but,
mm,
there's always room for more. There are
mm,
always going to be gaps between the conversations we're having with users and what gets released further down the line. So that's what it was for, really. So I think I first came up with it more as a title that might be a good workshop to run. And then I
mm,
sort of stopped myself and thought, well, hang on a minute. This is all based on my understanding of the situation. I'm a
mm,
researcher. So what
mm,
I need to do now is go and talk to people. So
mm,
last year I ran a survey which got about 150 responses from various different UXs across the world. And
mm,
then I spoke to a lot of them in sort of one-to-one interviews as well to really find out about their experiences and
mm,
how they see the gap. Is
mm,
it this massive chasm between research and
mm,
design, or
mm,
is it something that just needs a bit of
mm,
fixing along the way? So I did that last year and found out a lot from different people from sort of
mm,
different countries, different sectors, different job
mm,
types. And then I'm rerunning the survey again at the moment and just
mm,
about to start interviewing people again and talking to them to
mm,
find out sort of how that landscape's changed over time.
mm,
So that's how it came about. And then the,
mm,
the workshop itself is very much a sort of hands-on workshop.
mm.
That's the point of a workshop, right? But,
Yeah.
not just a talk, it is very much a two-way thing. And what I'll be doing during that is talking about some of the sort of solutions to some of the
Mm,
challenges that I've come across through the
mm,
through the research that I've been doing and how we help bridge the gaps, bridge the
mm,
gaps, for example, that maybe stakeholder involvements can bring to
mm,
projects,
Mm,
lack of
mm,
budget, lack of
mm,
understanding between researchers and designers and each other's methods.
mm,
There's all these sort of different areas. So the workshop itself is sort of broken down into those individual challenges and then some of the
mm.
solutions to both, including sort of getting your hands on it, having a go at some of those solutions too.
mhm,
Yeah.
Who do you think
I
would be
can.
best served by attending this pre-conference course?
So I think it's quite a broad audience.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not a super advanced course. So I think if
Mm,
people have been doing it a long time, hopefully they'll still learn things from other people because I have
mhm,
again got
mhm,
input from lots of different people. But I think it's also suitable for people relatively new to
mm,
this and perhaps developing those good habits from the start and
mm,
working out how they can make their research sort of more effective and give
mm,
more value to the research ultimately when it comes to developing products. So I think it's researchers and designers
mm,
primarily, but also there are other parties involved. So this year I've sort of broadened the survey out to developers as well. So
mm,
anyone involved in,
mm,
in that side of things, because they
mm,
often get overlooked as part of this
mhm,
process. So I think
mm,
there's an
mm,
audience for developers and also people who are working to help the UX process be as smooth as possible. So
mm,
product managers, project managers, those kind of people too would
mm,
certainly benefit and also feed into the
mm,
kind of research I'm doing at the moment and help
mm,
us to work better together because that's a lot of it, is
mm,
about understanding each other and working better together. So
mm.
essentially, if
yeah.
you work in UX, then yeah, this is the workshop for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Awesome.
was definitely thinking project managers,
Yeah.
product managers. It's really like
Yeah.
anybody who's involved in the process when you think about stakeholder alignment and
Mm,
roadmap alignment, budget alignment, right? Like all
Mhm.
these things, there's so many different people who are involved.
and requirements, like
Mm,
that's something that is o- sometimes forgotten, that how much impact user researchers and designers could have on creating good user requirements in general, and especially UX requirements.
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it. We talk about kind of getting certainly the research side off to a strong start. We always use a research canvas here at Clear Left, and that's
Mm,
something again we'll be doing in the workshop. We'll be kind of completing a fictional research canvas to make
mm,
sure those requirements are there for the
mm,
start. What is the objective
Nice.
of the research rather than just going out and talking to people and finding out
mm,
what they think, what are we
mm,
trying to learn, how are we trying to
mm,
learn it, that kind of thing. So I think there's those requirements, and then as you say, there's also the requirements further down the project.
mm,
The so what from the research. What
mm,
does it mean
mm,
for designers? What does that actually
mm,
mean?
Yeah.
that's something interesting you found out. What does that mean for me? What is the requirement, the next step for me to go and build? So yeah, it's all along that line. But I think there's definitely, and talking to lots of people, I'm definitely seeing lots of different gaps along the way that we can hopefully come together and help to bridge.
Love it. I
Great.
love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you at the event.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about coming to the event this year? Anything besides, of
Oh,
course, teaching an awesome pre-conference course?
yeah, I mean, I think a few things. So I was there last year, lucky enough to be in Fort Lauderdale to the event
Yeah.
last year, and it's just really good to get such a wide range of people from all around the globe. Lots of different insight from different people. I think it's really good to hear more, perhaps from the, practitioners than some other conferences as well. You know, some of the other conferences feel perhaps there's not that there's anything wrong with this, but people who spend a lot of their time speaking, whereas the UXPA one does feel more like the professionals association. It feels more like day-to-day practitioners coming and sharing their thoughts. So it'd be really good to hear from other people. Be good to go to Amsterdam as well. I have been before, but not for a while, so it'd be nice to go there too, and a lovely time of year to be there. So yeah, lots to look forward to really, and also meeting and networking with a wide range of interesting people.
Awesome. And we're looking forward to having you. So very excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm especially excited to have in a long time French fries with the mayo and
Hmm.
peanut sauce. That's kind of amazing combo that you only get in Holland.
There are some.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I haven't had that. I will try that.
Neither have
You
I.
have to try it out when we are there.
Okay.
Will do. All right. Well, thank you so much, Luke. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Really excited to catch up with you in person at the conference. Where can people to find you? Obviously at the conference. How else? If people want to reach out to you and chat with you before or after, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the main place is on LinkedIn, really. So I'm Luke Hay on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll find me, the Luke Hay that works for Clear Left. So I think that's if people want to get in touch with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, then that's a good starting point. Also, I would absolutely love anyone to complete my survey about bridging the gap as well. So again, if
Yeah.
you find me on LinkedIn, I've mentioned that several times on there, so you'll be able to find that and fill that in. And then, yeah, aside from that, in terms of Clear Left, we're clearleft.com, and you'll find out a lot more about us and our work on there. And again, get in touch if there's anything you'd like to discuss through Clear Left too.
Awesome. Thank
Awesome.
you, Luke.
No
We'll see
problem
you
Thank
at all.
soon.
you.
Nice to meet you. See you all
Yeah.
soon.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.